Hi, everyone. Welcome to March 22nd edition of my Featured Fem Fridays. Today, I have the honor and privilege of sitting down with Maya Davis. She is an abundance and wellness guide, intuitive, and artist. She is trained in traditional Chinese medicine, holistic nutrition, energy medicine, and is diving deeper into her shamanic roots to shift the world one woman at a time. She is also the founder of Women of Abundance, which can be found on Facebook. So thank you for joining me, Maya.
Thank you for having me.
And I'm so grateful to have you here because I know that your group, even for the last what 3 months that you've had this going, has really helped me kind of acknowledge where I'm at in my journey and
Mm,
allowed me to kind of focus more on where I want that abundance to be and allow for that gratitude to come in as well, which I think really helps at least myself with the abundance aspect. So thank you for that.
oh, you're welcome. Happy that you're there. Yeah, it's a fun group.
Yeah, it is. But I would really like to talk about your discussion topic today of the biggest myths and truths that you've discovered while creating your abundance along your journey. So, would you care to start with how your journey kind of began, or?
Sure. So I'll start by saying that with abundance, right?
Mm,
We all hear about like this, it's a buzzword, right now, that's out there. And I had no clue about it as a child,
mm,
but that's where my abundance journey started.
mm.
So I am one of 10 children.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it shocks a lot of people that, wow, that's a huge family in this day and age. But I'm one of, seven girls, three boys. And um, so needless to say, there were times where there wasn't an abundance of what most of us focus on when we think abundance, which is money, right? And so as a kid, and I think more primarily as a teen, because that's when you're really kind of coming into your own and you're wanting money for things, I really started to notice lack.
Right.
So, and I think that's the case with most people. As kids, we really, I mean, we don't really care. We have our toys, we have our snacks and our cartoons, and we're good to go. Um, but when you start to get a teen and you're reading magazines and you're around your friends and you're seeing certain things, you start to desire things, right? And there were times when we just didn't have it, and that's when I started to realize, wow, I want to create more. I need more. I started to long for things. Um, and so that's where it started. And I think that there are a lot of people where that's where their journey into desiring more in their life really starts. And as I've kind of grown, college and business and moving forward, um, I really became aware that abundance was so much more than money. And it was so much more than the material things. And it was like my whole world was like blown apart by that because we tend to just focus on that piece. And not to say that that's not important, because we obviously we're living in a society where it's absolutely necessary, but it's not where it begins, and it's not where the focus necessarily needs to be in order to have more of that.
Right.
And so recognizing that in my life, it was like, holy cow, like what else, And so that's when, like, when your world kind of cracks open, that's when you start just absorbing all of this information. So, reading some of the greats that, you might be familiar with, Abraham Hicks and Lisa Nichols, and a favorite of mine, Maru Ibuchela. Infinite Receiving, if no one is familiar with her. Just a lot of different people. I mean, even Oprah, she's talked a lot about it as well. And so I just absorbed all of this information, books, teachings, courses. And it really was when I started to do my own work, like absorbing all of that was great. But it was when I actually started doing my own work in my own way that I started to see and started to actually know what abundance truly was.
Mm.
So that's where I would say my journey has kind of evolved into now.
Mm. I love that. And I think that the more work I do through myself, like you said, the more I'm starting to realize that my issue with abundance definitely began as a child.
Mm,
Um, like my parents divorced when I was 10. And even the fact that now, like, I only have one sibling, I'm the oldest, and it almost seemed like the attention on us was now divided. So that abundance of like
mm,
love even kind of seemed divided. And that's something that I'm recognizing in myself. And then even just like money issues that we had, not really on my mom, but my dad after the divorce,
mm.
um, really sticks with me. And it's like, I'm glad that you brought that up because I think um, it is such almost like primal in us that
Yeah,
like it's like geared in our head. Like, you need to make money, you need to do this, you need to provide. And there's so much more than just that. Um,
right.
And I love that you talked about how you gathered all this information for yourself, but then it wasn't until you actually really started doing this work for yourself that you started to recognize that like just overall abundance, right? And where you were lacking. So do you want to talk about that journey a little bit and like how you started doing that work for yourself?
Yeah. So it's so interesting, and I want to make a comment to what you said about your parents divorcing, because
Mm-hmm.
I think as a Western culture, we can kind of all, we know somebody who's been divorced, or our parents divorced when we were young, and mine was when I was 11, so it was right at that time, and that does stick with you, and that can be some of the underlying fuel to wanting more, and I definitely want to touch on that because. Sometimes we are desiring more money, but it's actually a different thing that we're desiring. That money's kind of like wanting to hold energetic space for. Um, but for me, I'll say this: when I graduated college, grad school, I moved to California, wanted to start a new life. And it's sunny, it's beautiful. You're like, yeah, everything's going to go my way. You feel like really amazing. And then life kind of threw me a plot twist, as I call it. I don't like to say like things went south or bad. It's like, oh, this is different. My sister, one of my younger sisters, became very ill. And at the time, and anybody who knows me knows I'm a huge animal person. I've done rescue work, and my own dog became sick with cancer. And at the same time, I was starting my business. And so I had all of these things kind of coming together. I was helping my sister. I was, watching after my dog and seeing clients in between. I can remember bouncing back and forth. And I just got so overwhelmed with everything. And I went from, seeing clients to everything completely going quiet and silent. And when that happened, of course, for me, I got into this mode of, oh my God, like, you do that initial freak out. And then in your mind, you snowball all of the things that can go wrong, even some ones that just seem so ridiculous when you think back on them. Like, why did I even think that? That's crazy. Um, but, that's just natural. It's human. We do that. So I was in that place where I just really freaked out. I was stressed out. My health took a turn. for the worst. I had trouble walking up and down stairs, and I'm a very like active person. So the fact that all of these things were happening, I did not put two and two together at first.
Mm.
So this went on for about 3 years of exhaustion, overwhelm. And I was trying to look up, home remedies, and, I started doing meditations. And it was one day in particular, I remember I had been up all night with my sister. I hadn't had any sleep, and I had a client to see the next morning. And I remember getting on the phone with her that morning, and just the kind of introduction, we were talking, and she says, "How are you?" And I completely like started bawling to my client who I was just having the initial conversation with. And I couldn't hold it together, and thankfully she was very understanding, but as a person in business, you definitely don't want to lead with, "Here's my troubles first." Now, then I'll ask you. But it was that breaking point for me. And I realized that I really needed to change some things. And from that point on, I will say that's what really started me deeper diving into meditation and grounding work. I started to get closer to my spiritual roots, which I was raised in two different religions, but my spiritual roots being not something that I can really classify in any sort of way other than just, nature and also some Native American traditions.
Okay.
So I started getting back to that meditation. And for whatever reason, that just silenced the noise enough for me to start to see some differences and changes in my life. They were very subtle, but I started to see the shift. And it was like when one resting point would happen, I would get more information, and then I can get to the next resting point, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. And so from there, it was just like a momentum of abundance just started to unfold. And I started to see little glimpses of it. But even still, with that, I didn't believe or really understand what exactly was creating it in my life. So I took a lot of different things for granted. I wasn't consistent with certain things. I just kind of would do something, and then when I got a result, I would kind of fall off the wagon, and that's something like I'm not afraid to call my own self out. That's something we have to be, is very honest with ourselves. And so I recognized that I had some faults in that. I wasn't being consistent. I wasn't really even showing up the way that I necessarily wanted to show up in order to really see change in my life. So I would get some change and it would feel good, and I would kind of ride off the high of that for a little bit and then kind of float down. And it was kind of that. And I think that many people experience that, where, depending upon your beliefs, you might do ritual, or you might meditate for a while, or start on that track of like healthy eating and a healthy lifestyle. And then you feel good, you start to see some weight drop, or you're feeling really good, and you're like, "Oh, I'm good," and then you you just kind of float off. So that's what I did for quite some time, and the results of that were like minuscule changes, but it was like a plateau still in my life. And if you're like me, you have goals, you have things that you want to achieve in life that are bigger than yourself. And when I didn't see any of that, or being close to any of that, I became very frustrated. And that frustration really plummeted me into like a emotional dark period, as I say. Like I went on hiatus, as I call it, from life. I checked out, and I really spent a lot of time in isolation for, I would say a good couple of months. And while it seemed dark at the time, because I went through a tumultuous relationship at the time and really was not around friends and family because, I didn't have the success that I thought I should have at that time. I thought I'd be married. I thought I'd have the child. I thought I'd have, all these accumulation of things that you would think at a certain age you expect yourself to have. And so I was really my own worst critic and kind of judger on those things. So I pulled myself away. And looking back at that now, even though it wasn't the most brightest time in my life, it was a blessing in the sense that I was able to cultivate some things on my own and do the work. And so I got very used to seeing my own BS. I don't know if we can say the word, so.
Yeah, you can say it.
So I got used to, I was able to see my own bullshit.
Yeah.
I was able to, and I'll say this, calling your own self out is like the hardest thing for you to do. Most people will do anything else, clean the windows, take a nap, Netflix and chill before they actually, take a look at what's really going on there. And so the beauty in that was that I was able to do that, and that's something that's free, that is at anybody's disposal. It's just to take some time for yourself to really become aware at where you're harming yourself, where you're not growing, and really to get clear on what you really desire first and foremost, because otherwise you're just kind of blindly going through life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I was able to do that. And that really opened up an entire world to me that I didn't know was possible. So within a few short months, I saw my life completely change. I went from being in this really toxic relationship where I almost lost my life to, traveling. I've Dominican Republic, Panama, like I have trips to Spain and Berlin and California, like Sedona coming up, like all of these things that I've been wanting to do. Doing that, I was able to move to a place that was my ideal location. And I'm starting to create this community that is like beyond what I could have wished for. I reconnected with my dad, which I hadn't seen in 25 years. So that was huge.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, we have a great relationship now. Um, and also, and I think one of the biggest keys and the biggest blessings of the work that I have done for me is that it trickles down to other people. And I was able to help my brother, my youngest brother, through a period of time in his life where he was suicidal. And to help other friends who also shared certain similar stories of being stuck and having a lost sense of self-worth and wanting the money, wanting the happiness, wanting all of these things and not knowing how to break through and being frustrated. And I think that me being able to do the work for myself has really been a blessing because I can then, share it with anyone, because I'm able to see those points. And it's sometimes good to have somebody on who's not as close to you or who's not in your circle who's able to take a step back and see, what's really going on there.
Yeah. Wow. That is a powerful story. Like, so,
Girl,
um,
I went through it.
yeah,
Not even lying.
that's like amazing. And the things that like I really pulled out of that um, are authenticity
Mhm.
and how being authentic with ourselves helps ourselves, but then eventually can really show other people that living that authentic life, calling ourselves out on that bullshit, and getting out of our comfort zone really can help us so much.
Yeah.
And then another aspect I heard in your story is forgiveness.
Mm,
Forgiving yourself
yes.
for the situations that you were in, then learning better and
Mhm.
moving on, right? Going, doing what you needed to do. And
Right.
then by forgiving yourself, it was easier for you to like forgive your father, for instance, and
Hmm.
reconnect with someone and allow for that abundance of like family love and connection to come through. And I think that's so beautiful because I think especially as women, we put a lot of um, like you said, expectations on ourselves in
Right.
order to just like, nope, this is it. I'm going to take it. And then we get really resentful of ourselves. And it
Hmm.
becomes so hard to live with the choices that we made. But the choices that we made were not, they were not in a place of knowing, right?
Right.
Like
Right.
I think of Maya Angelou's quote that says, once you know better, do better,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And that's really what was like kind of resonating with me. And like your story was that like we live our life, and when we're open to that like doing better, it
Right.
allows us to forgive, and it allows us to say, yeah, I did that, and no, I'm not, like, that's not a great moment in my life, but it was a learning moment in my life, and I'm still proud of it because it got me
Mhm.
where I am today. So that's, yeah, it's so beautiful.
Oh wow. I love that you took that away from that because that is a huge piece. You know, if you look at like the scale of vibration, right? So I might get a little woo-woo here, but it
Yeah.
is something that's scalable and that people can really use, is that if you look at the scale of vibration, the highest is enlightenment
Hmm.
and the lowest is shame. Right before that, you have your guilt and your anger and fear. And if you really take a look at your life and the decisions that you make, there are many of them, innocently so, but there are many of them that we start off and we make it from that place. You know, I'm afraid to do this, so I'm gonna, you know, take it safe and do this instead. And what that does really is when we're in that place of, you know, where we just want to play it safe, or that we're still holding on to things from the past, when we are unforgiving of ourselves and others, when we are negatively judging ourselves and others, you know, all of that is dense energy.
Yeah.
You know, and some people say, wow, I feel so heavy. You know, it's not really a physical thing, it's an energetic thing. And that's something, having studied acupuncture and the energetics of the body, that is absolutely 100% something that can be measured. And it's also something that can cause physical, even though it seems something that's outside of the body, it's something that can affect you physically. And anything that can affect you physically, it can affect the way that you operate in the world. It can affect the way that you react. Um, or I'll say this: it can affect the way you respond, not necessarily the way you
Hmm.
react. You become reactionary instead of responding. So there's a lot of things that can happen. And then when you look at money, which is typically what people think of when they think of abundance, that absolutely gets affected by that.
Right.
You know, for example, if you're not forgiving of yourself, you're holding on to guilt, you're holding on to shame, you know, it might present itself as, I am overspending on food or different things outside of myself to make myself feel whole.
Hmm.
And for a lot of people, they never get satisfied. That's where you get a lot of binge eating. You know, it's like this trying to fill up but never feeling satisfied. That's where, you know, cravings, even on the opposite end of, you know, over exercising, you know, spending money, or even hoarding money because you're in this fear state. If I spend this, then nothing else will come in, you know. And there's absolutely a story behind that that's been repeated enough times to create a energetic imprint on yourself in the way that you move about the world.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's, I'm like, man, I needed this today. No. um, I think like what you said was just, yeah, you're right. Like lately I've really been saying like my body is my roadmap, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when for me it's very hard for me just to stop. Like how you were saying with your when you took that break to really self-reflect. I did
Mm-hmm.
that too 2 years ago and I really needed encouragement from
Yeah.
the people around me to be like it's okay. Like we're
Yeah.
still going to be here. We're still going to love you. Like your business can pick back up where it needs to pick back like and what you said too about like age and stuff. We
Mm-hmm.
have these like measurements that tell us how much abundance we have in our life, right?
Mm-hmm.
Kids, marriage, house, all this stuff. And it's like that's the rat race is with yourself. It's not with anyone else.
Right.
And it's so hard in society, in our society especially, to take that time to stop, do that hard stop and say, who do I want to be? Where do I want to go? What do I want to see flourish in my life?
Mm-hmm.
And then work towards that as your goals, right? And
Right.
that is what abundance is. And in our
Yeah.
society, it's so hard because people say, well, how are you going to make money if you stop? What are you going to do? It'll come.
Mm-hmm.
It'll come. Like,
Right. And I want to share, so in talking about some of the myths that I've
mhm,
discovered over time, one of the biggest myths, especially with when it comes to making money, is
mhm,
that I have to do more. I have to, you see all of these things. I'm on my hustle, the coffee mugs, I'm on my hustle and grind. And, you know, um, it's not something that needs to be done. It's not another thing to put on your to-do list. Matter of fact, burn the to-do list. It comes in handy at sometimes, but when we're talking about wanting to have a more money, more love, more, well-being in your life, doing more is not necessarily where it's at. In fact, doing more can actually repel that. And for women, because particularly I speak, I speak with women,
mhm,
we are at this point in society where we are, you know, breadwinners, we are, climbing corporate ladders, we are doing quite a bit, and it's amazing to see. However, there's a lot of it that's happening from this space of, if I don't do more, then I'm going to be left behind. I'm not going to be able to get up, or I have to compete. So therefore, I have to do twice as much, in order to be worthy, in order to get the thing that I'm after.
yeah, in
And
order to
so,
fit enough.
exactly. And so what happens is that, we get up earlier, we go to bed later, we are, we have this rigid schedule that we adhere to with no movement, and we take on more because we think that we need those things in order to get there, because we're listening to a lot of different outside sources saying, you have to do this, you have to eat this, you have to be like this, and it can be overwhelming.
Mhm,
We're in the age of, we have a lot of technology and we have a lot of different information at our hands, and we are just becoming information hoarders, where we're just taking it all in and trying something, dropping it, trying something, dropping it, trying something, dropping it. And that's okay to try things, but it's taking on a lot energetically.
mhm,
And one of the things that abundance likes is space, you know.
yeah.
And have you ever been at home? And this is a good test. Have you ever been at home and like you're at your desk or you're doing something and you're like, God, I can't think. I can't think. And you look around and there's clutter and you're like, I'll feel better once I get the clutter out. and you declutter, you clean out your closets or off your desk, and all of a sudden you feel like you can breathe and things start moving smoothly. That's just a practical way of showing people how energy actually works. It loves the space to move around. So if you're wanting to, let's say, for example, if you're a woman and you're wanting to start your own business, right? But you are like slaving yourself at your job. And when you come home, you're exhausted and you don't have the space to let that in. And what I hear more often than not is, well, I can't do anything about it. It's my job. I need to make this money because I have bills and I have that. That's true. You do, and I'm definitely not saying, no, drop your bills.
Yeah.
Get a tiny house and move into the country. Although it does sound kind of nice. Yeah. What I'm saying is that there are ways of moving around. And I'm going to share this in a story. So before living in Austin, that's where I'm at now in Austin, Texas. Before being here, I lived in Georgia. And I love Georgia. It's great. It's beautiful, but it did not feel like the space for me. But I had no idea at the time how I was going to move anywhere else. So I started making space, mentally making space and physically making space, and just so that everyone is clear, when you mentally make space, what that essentially means is making a decision and taking all other offers off the table. So instead of me being like, oh, Austin's nice, but I don't know if I can do it. And well, this is cute over here, this apartment, maybe I'll do this. And oh, here's this option. I just said, no, Austin. I have to do Austin. And there were things that guided me along the way, which is a little bit of a longer story. And anybody who wants to hear it, I have posted it in my Facebook group. But once all the other options were off the table, I had that energetic and mental space to just focus on that. Within a week, after a year of looking for a place, within a week I had it. And within a month, I was, no problem. And within a month, I was in Austin and moved. And this was like not knowing. When I say, girls, that I had no idea how that was going to happen, no idea. Right. And that has been the story for everything that I have accomplished within the last 3 years. At the time that it happens, I have no idea how I'm going to get it done. And yeah, it just happened.
In order for it to happen. Yeah.
Exactly. And if you think about it as like your GPS, your navigator, right? You can put in an address and it's not going to give you the whole thing. And you absorb all of that and you're like, okay, I committed this to memory. I got it. It tells you piece by piece how to get there, what turns to make. And many of us, we get caught up in not knowing the full story, not knowing everything. And because we don't know that, we hold ourselves back. And that causes resistance. And when we're in that energy of resistance, what happens. Nothing can really flow from that point. So making that space, you could start that today if there are things that you're desiring in your life. Cleaning, decluttering is a good one. Making the decision, and there's a difference between having choices and actually making a decision. Choices, you still have options. Making a decision, you're saying, I'm burning the boat. This is it for me. And one of my spiritual teachers, one of the greatest things she's taught me is that what that means is that you are devoted to the outcome. You're devoted to the journey that this is leading you on, which also means that you accept the consequences of that too. And with that acceptance, it doesn't mean that you actually beat yourself up if it doesn't go right. If it's not what you expect, saying, you know what, I made a decision, I made a choice. It's taking that full responsibility. And that frees you up from feeling guilty, feeling ashamed or embarrassed or whatever else might come with it.
Mhm.
And so it's all connected. you know
No, I totally know that because this summer, I'm just going to share a little story of my own.
yeah.
Um, so when I was 18, I moved to BC,
Mm-hmm.
and I ended up moving back after about 5 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and this past summer, I was there again for two weeks on and off. And my whole heart and soul was like, I need to be here. This is where I need to be.
Mm-hmm.
My partner and I went, and he actually lived in British Columbia for quite a while till he was 6. And he was like, I love, yeah, you're right, I do. Like, I love being here. I love being on the ocean. Came back
Mm-hmm.
here, and I'm like, all right, next year we're gonna buy a house. Like, let's really start like investigating British Columbia. And he's like, hang on, wait, let's actually talk.
yeah.
We want to start a family. We want to get married. Are we sure that this is the best thing for us to do when we're starting a life like this, right? Do we want to uproot our entire life away from all of our family and do this? And like I'm in tears, sobbing, like this is my soul's calling. Like
yeah.
you're taking this away from me. But it was in that moment that I had to make a decision. What was more important to me? A life with a partner of love, or
Mm-hmm.
this place, right? That this mystic
Mm-hmm.
place I kind of had in my head. I had tangible here,
Mm-hmm.
mystic there. And
Yeah.
I said, no, I can make that life here because the life that I want there is already here. I just need to start
Mm-hmm.
accepting that. And
Yeah.
that came with a decision that one day I will get to BC. Maybe that'll be our retirement home or something.
Uh-huh.
Um, but I needed to start actually seeing what I had in front of me. And through
Yeah.
that decision, that really helped.
That's amazing. And to have that awareness too, to make that decision. I know I've been in that place before, and without that much consciousness to it at the time, and was just like, no, I have to. And and we definitely do that, but I'm so excited. And you're so right. Like it's not dependent on the outside sources. Like you could create that with your love where you are now.
Hmm.
Um, but a key piece you said was like, you know, being able to see it. And it's just like, how you ever like you've lost your keys in plain sight? Like you're looking at it, or like your glasses are on your face and you're just like tearing your house apart to try to find it. That comes into to place with abundance as well, particularly with not only freeing up, emotional space, but also energetically for finances as well.
Hmm.
So many times when we're desiring something that is of a material nature, um, we are so focused on that and the lack of it being in our lives, not so much what it is, and that we start to pull ourselves away from the energy of having it,
Hmm.
you know. And so desire can work two ways. You can desire this thing and you can just imagine, just for the sake of an example, a car. You can imagine yourself driving the car and, going down the road and your windows down and you have your favorite tunes and, you have your friends in the car, and you're, headed to the beach or whatever that dream is for you
Hmm.
in a car. That's what it is for me.
Yep.
but but
Freedom.
yeah, and just wind whipping through your wild hair, kind of a feeling. And then there's the desire, so that's one kind. And then there's the desire where you're just like, oh, it would feel good to have that. And man, I wish, man, one day,
Mm.
man, and there's definitely a different energetic there. One is, moving the momentum in the direction of having, and the other is focused on, I don't have it yet.
Yeah, I think that goes back to your high vibe and low vibe,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Because what happens is, our minds are interesting, is that we start to create the story, right? So when we get into that place where we're focused on not having it, then we start to think of, oh, man, I should have done this. Maybe I should have saved more money, or, we get into the story of why we don't have it yet. And those feelings can sometimes lead to shame and guilt. And then the story on top of that of, how do I do it? And if you're in that space of the second kind of desire, then what you're going to do is you might start trying to hustle and grind and exhaust yourself to get that.
Mm.
And one thing I share is that with abundance and actually accumulating this, when you focus on, I got to do and how and, all of that, it can make it come for sure. I'm not saying that you will never have it, but there's definitely an easier way of doing it, going about it. And for me, anyway, the road to what you desire is just as important as receiving and actually reaching your destination.
Mm. Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
Um, so let's talk a little bit about, just because we've been talking about abundance, let's talk about the group that you offer,
Yeah.
and just what people can kind of expect from that. What's typical kind of posts, and how are you empowering women to find that abundance in their life?
Right. So for Women of Abundance, it's a community,
Hmm.
and I always say we're small, but we're mighty. And it's definitely high vibe. I love all of the women in there, and it's very active. And the kind of post that I like to do, um, being an intuitive, it's not something that, I have a whole schedule already filled with, this is what we need to do today. It's in the moment. I love to connect with all the women in there and actually get a feel of what's going on in your life. Where are you at today? Because that's what's really coming up, and that's what really needs to either shift or be addressed or supported in that moment. So I do a lot with that, and I like to share from my own experience how I have cultivated abundance, how I am continuing on the practice of cultivating abundance. And I think that the power of story is um, I think that is very powerful in our lives,
Mm.
because when you can see that somebody else has done it, and you can see the emotion and the passion that they have, and that it's possible, I think it beats any type of literature or whatever that says, do this and then do this. You like to know, like, what does it feel like?
Yeah.
Where were you stuck? How did it move you? You know, because you get to kind of get a sense of, I wonder if that would be my experience, or you just get excited for what you might encounter on your own. You get excited for wanting to play with it. And I really do want to encourage women when it comes to abundance that, it's nothing that you have to take seriously in the sense of, I have to do this. And if it doesn't work, then I'm going to be devastated. No, play with it.
Mm.
This is something that you get to do.
Hmm.
And I really like to share with women that abundance is not something that you just accumulate on the outside. those are just the perks of what you're doing on the inside.
Yep.
Those are the little shifts that are happening within the group. And that's why I love the focus of the group, because the little shares that we do, the connection that we have, the vibe that we have, being in there each and every day, seeing what each other are posting, it has an effect, because you never know what, another woman is going through on that day, or, who needs uplifting, or, where anyone is. There's been so many times I've come into the group and someone says on the post, I really needed to hear that today. And I have no idea, none of us have any idea, but when you're a collective and when you're vibrating at a certain level and you have this goal in mind, this journey in mind that you're taking together, you start to get in sync. Just like how women, how we come into sync during our moon time, we become in sync with our vibration, which is exactly what that is. And so when one person is high vibe and doing great, it has the propensity for everybody to start to do that. And you'll start to see the shifts little by little, like, oh my God, this happened today. Yeah, this happened today. And oh my God. And before you know it, everyone is like, rainbows and glitter. They're just like vibing out and having a good time. And that's what I really want to impart on women. That's really what I want them to experience when they're in the group.
Well, I have to say, just like being a part of this group, I mean, even you and we've only met via webinar chats.
Yeah.
And I feel so connected to these women that are in this group, and that these women have a vested interest, as I have a vested interest in their day-to-day life, and just making sure that, like, if someone is kind of like having a bad day, like, I needed that post today, like, you start seeing all these people like hitting that love button, and just like that makes you feel validated and heard, and that really does allow for space to just open up and allow for that light to come in for that.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
I what I love about this too is that yes, you're the founder and like you kind of like run the group and stuff, but it is a group that's meant to be collaborative, right? Like you're not just like, this is my space, I'm gonna like, please comment on my posts. You're really like, no, like, if you have something to share, please share it. And your group is actually one of the few groups that I will seek out every single day to be like, oh, what's going on here? And oh, nice. Yes, I did. Like, I know for me myself, I'm always like, I needed this post. Like, it's like whoever's posting, it's like it just tapped right into like where I need to be. And like I said at the beginning, it really does allow for that accountability. Just having other women to support you and not compete with you, right? Like they're yeah.
I wish I had like confetti to toss when you said that, because it's women, the feminine nature in general is not competitive.
Yeah.
It's collaborative. And that's the space that I definitely want to create, is because when we can connect together and we pool our resources, like I have friends, I'm like, look, what I learn is not for me. I share. When we can do that, we can grow as a community and we can shift the world. And there's something that the Dalai Lama said, is that the world will be saved by the Western woman. And I don't think that that's not true, but I think it will be saved by a collective of high vibe women who are really in their authenticity, that trust that abundance is something that they are and not something they need to get. And also that they know that they're worthy of all the good things that are waiting for them in their life. It's like it's already there, And when that happens, you come from this place of generosity because your cup is full.
Yeah.
And so, that the group is about filling cups, essentially.
Cynthia has just joined us. She says, hi, hi to the ladies.
Hey, Cynthia.
I think what your quote that you said just kind of inspired me to say that I really like since going to university and stuff, like and learning about privilege and like my role in society and my privilege. How you said that about like Western women, I completely agree. I think that as a well, not completely. I think as a Western woman and having this privilege, as like a white woman, and I know that in society my presence seems to be more valued, whether it's not true or you know what I mean. I have this responsibility in order to use my voice so that the women and the marginalized people who don't have that kind of privilege now have a voice. And I think what I've been seeing a lot lately is women in countries that don't have that voice using that Western voice to say, look, I am just as worthy as my
Yes,
sisters in a privileged country. And I
right.
and I love that. And I think that, although they're coming from it in a different way, they're
Mhm.
using their like disadvantages, I guess, to show privilege to people.
Mhm.
And that's really allowed me to go, wow, like that's right. Like that's so true. And
Yeah,
I do need to start using my voice more and allowing for that abundance to happen in everyone's life around me. So
absolutely.
I love
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's about one of the things that when you said that I really admire about, women who might not have the privileges that we do, even in just, the North American continent,
hmm
is that um, you know, it's about being abundant is about not necessarily having the resources, but being resourceful.
right.
And so when you can see what you do have and what you are working with, and that doesn't necessarily mean anything physical that's outside of you. That could be like, man, what are my gifts? You know, um, I'm very intuitive. I'm an artist. I love words. I connect well with others. What can I use there to really kind of pull my purpose into the world?
hmm
And when you are moving from that place, it also has to do with authenticity and trust, especially as an artist,
Yeah.
when you can pull all of that in, abundance honestly just radiates from you. And then you start to see the things that you desire come to fruition.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
We have almost talked for an hour. Like that is just flown
What?
by.
It has. Oh my God.
Um, so I'd like to start wrapping up unless there's something that you were really wanting to talk about that we haven't had a chance to do that yet. Because I mean, I don't have a timeline here, but
Yeah, yeah.
I just is there anything that we haven't really spoke about that you would maybe like to bring to the table?
Hmm. I think just reiterating that abundance is something that you radiate.
Right.
It's not something that you have to do more for or slave yourself over. It's not necessarily something you just read in the book and then all of a sudden it comes. It's
hmm
something that is in you. So when you can start seeing how awesome that makes you, that there's nothing that you have to do outside here. You are already. It's there. You don't have to seek love. It's here already. The world is just a projector for what's going on in here.
Yep.
And if you can keep that in mind, then like your world can shift like that. And as a Black woman who from a mom of 10 kids raised us primarily by herself for the first, or for I would say since I was 11 on up, I have seen my life shift in ways that statistically should not be available to me.
Mm,
So if I know that if I can do it, that it's available to any woman.
I love that. So you kind of touched on this a little bit, but I'd like to ask what advice you do have for those women that might be struggling with finding, either that space or that time to allow that self-worth to kind of resonate in them to absorb that abundance that is rightfully theirs.
Yeah.
Um,
So, yeah, time always is an issue, right?
yeah.
And I will say this. If you can sit and brush your teeth in the morning, make a cup of tea, put on your socks, drive to work or whatever, you can do it then. It doesn't take having to carve out an hour's time. You can eventually get there. But if you have 2 minutes, we could have blocked out 2 minutes on this call to just be silent and have that moment to just breathe and get centered. 2 minutes. 1 minute. I mean, honestly, if you have 10 seconds, put that on your clock. Take baby steps. And I think if you start where you are, look at what you can do. This is the part about being resourceful. Then there's always going to be a space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wrote down earlier in our chat, small changes make big results.
Oh, boom.
So I
there you go.
So
awesome.
the last thing I want to say is I kind of do a lunar mantra. And my mantra has been thrown at me this lunar cycle of slow down. Because I've been sick most of this month, which I'm still getting a lot of stuff done, but my body has been telling me you need to slow down. You need to just allow for this to come. So what would your mantra or affirmation be now, or I know some people carry it throughout a lifetime type of thing. So
yeah, that's a good question. So as you were talking, the mantra that wanted to come through, I'll say, because I have many mantras that I run through. But I think the one that would be most valuable to end this with would be to don't do more, be more.
Wow, that is so powerful. I got chills all through my body when you said that. That is, yes, so
Yeah.
That's lovely. Like that just works on so many levels. I just had to sit with that for a minute.
And I'll say that's good. A lot of times we get excited about things, and one of my mentors shares with me, sometimes excitement is like our container can't contain that energy, but when we can actually sit and go and just breathe it in for a moment, we actually take it deeper into our truth. Yeah.
Well, I love it. So everyone, we have kind of come to the end of our chat. I do very much encourage you to join the Women of Abundance on Facebook. Maya is an amazing kind of leader of the group, but like we were talking about, it is a group for everyone to really share this experience and raise their vibrations and connect with like-minded women. So please reach out and join the group. It is in the description here, but I'll drop it in the comments as well, just to make it a little bit more easier for people. I want to thank you so much, Maya, for being here. It was such a lovely chat and so inspiring. So many things resonated with me, and I find that every Friday, the women that I have on, it's like exactly what I needed to hear that week, type of thing.
Yeah.
So, thank you so much for being that voice of reason for me this week. And
thank you for having me, and thank you for having this space.
Oh, you're very welcome. Yeah, and it's like I was telling you today, Fridays are my new favorite day for a whole other reason, because I do get to connect with women, face to face, and just really hear their stories and listen to them. And I think it's so needed, right? Just to hold space
Mhm.
for each other.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
yeah. Well, everyone, if you would like to be a featured femme, reach on out. No business is too big or too small. No mindset is too big or too small. I'm even opening it up to, I had this kind of thought that like stay at home moms, reach out to
Mhm.
me. I want to feature you because your job is probably like the busiest
Yes.
and most stressful of all of us. So if you would
Yeah.
like to be featured, reach out. Have a great Friday evening, everyone, and we will see you next Friday.